Hi guys, Paul is here from VPI Academy, back with you guys for another episode of Futurecast. Today with me is Amar, Global Head of BD for EMURGO. Hi Amar.
Hi Paul, thanks for having me.
Right, so we are at TOKEN2049, rough week this week, and let's start with understanding a little bit about you, a little bit about EMURGO, what you guys do, and what is your role within EMURGO.
Sure, so my name is Amar, I'm a director at EMURGO. My role is Global Head of Business Development. When we talk about business development, because and how EMURGO is placed, we are talking about ecosystem building, we're talking about partnerships, collaboration, product suite, its adoption, because at EMURGO we have our own product suite like stablecoins, wallets and whatnot. And then equally incubation, like how do we go about it and so on. So multiple angles there, ecosystem building, product suite development, adoption, collaborations, partnerships. So we formed an entire BD engine within EMURGO that works towards it, and I'm leading that engine. Yeah.
Right. And with so many angles to tackle, what is the most challenging part of your role so far?
Challenging part is to narrow down the focus, right? Because in Web3 space right now, there are 10,000 things. There are 50 layer ones, 100 layer twos, gazillion dexes, NFTs. So how do you narrow down focus, and how do you make sure that you're focusing on for-profit things? Because it's very easy to lose vision and the money flows out very fast. So you have to make sure that you get bang for the buck and you narrow focus, not only for yourself, but for your teams and so on. That's the biggest challenge I feel in this role and so on. And
so you said managing your team. So under you would be a system of other leaders as well working. So far, there are many angles that you are tackling as a global head of BD.
Correct.
And then how would you managing the other team just for like efficiency's sake?
No problem. So just to give you a bit of context on EMURGO, right? So EMURGO is a founding entity of Cardano, but it's a for-profit entity. So that means there are two buckets. One is Cardano. That means we have a certain loyalty to Cardano ecosystem, which might not generate or make money for EMURGO, but EMURGO wants to do it because it was the founding entity of Cardano. And then there's other bucket, which is for profit, which can be chain agnostic, which can be on other things, which can be our product making money. So the team is divided in these two buckets. We have a Cardano ecosystem lead who has his own team, which is focused on Cardano, making partnership with exchanges, market makers, what have you. And then we have other bucket, which is focused on our products, our suite, how do we build it, what investments we make and all that stuff, right? So that's how the team is divided.
And going deeper into the key service of you guys providing at Cardano, EMURGO, and how are you guys helping with the Cardano adoption, maybe worldwide, we speak worldwide?
Sure. So if you talk of commercial activity on any chain, there are basic building blocks. These basic building blocks is education, it's wallet, it's stablecoin, it's dexes, which is decentralized exchange. That's how you facilitate the economy on a blockchain. So a blockchain is nothing but an operating system, right? And our operating system, in order for it to have a lot of apps, you need to have these basic building blocks. So EMURGO has one of the leading wallets on Cardano, which is Yoroi. We have just announced a launch of a stablecoin, which will enable cross-border remittance in 80 countries in a regulated manner. That means if I send you something like USDA in your wallet in Vietnam or Thailand, you can instantly off-ramp into Vietnamese dong or Thai baht in your bank account in a regulated manner, faster than Wise and other money transmitting services, right? So these are basic building blocks of any economy. When people can do this, they will adopt your technology, which is Cardano. If they adopt your technology, because I personally believe that technology for the sake of technology doesn't work. You have to build use cases around it. And when people use those use cases, then you basically have all these things going on. So that was that part, stablecoin, wallets, what we have built. Then education. So Cardano is a unique model because it's not EVM compatible. It's non-EVM. That means different technology stack, right? That means developers have to learn a new language, which is Haskell. So somebody has to come and educate developers, train them. So EMURGO initially took this on itself, created EMURGO Academy to train developers and so on. But equally now, It's training non-tech people like accountants, bankers, so that they understand the use case of technology and they come on board.
I love how you talk about education, because our background is at VPI is we also an educator, and we have organized bootcamp, as I've shared with you, and leading up to that is also several hackathon. And one of the key thing we notice is the education is always, you cannot just ask people, hey, come and build on Cardano without providing them the context, or for people with no tech background, you cannot talk about them about use case of Web3 without providing them some formal education about that. So what is the focus of Cardano EMURGO Academy, and how are you guys achieving the vision that you said, educating the market, the people about Cardano?
So EMURGO Academy initially had focus of giving technical training. That means developer courses, certification courses in Haskell. Now, if you go to history of Cardano, Cardano's roots are in academic research. Because of that, the language which was chosen was Haskell, which is the same language used by rocket scientists. Why? Because the vision was that this blockchain will stay for next 40, 50 years, not just 4, 5 years. And this will become a financial operating system. Now, if it is to become a financial operating system, trillions of dollars will be transacted on that technology every day. And hence, it cannot have any margin of error, just like rocket science. Because if you mess up anything in rocket science, people die, right? So because of that, this language was chosen. Now, because this language is hard, there was a need to train people. There was a need to educate people and so on. And because of that, EMURGO Academy initially went after technical stuff, created those courses, created those certifications. After doing that, now we have enough developer base, but it's never enough. We have enough developer base. So now the purpose is to spread awareness. Where do you spread awareness? You spread awareness with common men having use cases or common professions. These will be accountants, or lawyers, or doctors, or bankers. So now Academy is doing that as well. It's conducting workshops so that they know there's a use case and there's a technology that can solve this use case. So first was technical education, then was awareness, and then use case based education.
And what is the best way for people to start learning about Cardano? You said workshop, but is there any specific way that you are organizing it? Is it like a live workshop where you have an expert talking about it and then you guys record it? How do you guys do your workshops?
Both. So the certification course is not live. I mean, it is live, but it's not a live workshop in person. So people, because the nature of blockchain is people are based in different geography and they want to do it on demand and so on, right? That was not live. But this one, for bankers or accountants, it's like a weekend workshop in person in different locations. For example, in London for 2 days, for accountants, they can come and they can learn. Similarly, in Singapore for 2 days or 3 days, on and on. So that's the modus operandi.
And you said Singapore, which is during Token Week as well, right?
Correct, yeah.
And what would be the focus of this week workshop, just for some background, that the workshop you guys are hosting this week?
We are not hosting a workshop this week, but we have done it in past in Singapore. We are trying to organize now as well. The thing is, you want to do a workshop where you have a lot of those kind of crowd, right? So if I'm doing a workshop for Cardano community, probably more than Singapore, I'd like to do where community is stronger. If I'd like to do a workshop for bankers, then maybe Singapore is a good place because you have a lot of financial people here, right? Because those folks might not care about Cardano or Ethereum and Solana. They just want to learn what is Web3, how do we get into it, what is technology. And we don't want to push Cardano down people's throat, right? Idea is to drive adoption first into Web3, and then educate people that, hey, this is EVM, non-EVM, this is Ethereum, Solana, and by the way, this is Cardano as well. Then people can make informed choices and so on. And that's our approach to drive adoption.
I love how you share. So there's two sides to the technical side for people that are more developers and builder, and then the non-technical side. A lot of the conversation I've had is for Web2, just people. How do I get into Web3? I'm a banker, accountant, finance guy. How do I get into Web3? And have you found a way to bridge that? You said education is a way to bridge that, but like, what is the way that you translate this message to the Web2 people? And for developer side, on the tech side, what are the way that you giving people idea, or some way that you can share the insight on, hey, what are the ideas you guys should build on, and maybe why you guys should build on Cardano?
Yeah. So 2, 3 things, right? Education is one part of the puzzle, one piece of the puzzle rather, but not everything. Other thing is working applications, a pain point, a use case, and all that stuff, right? So if you would have noticed, just very recently, we announced partnership with Antler. In that partnership, as part of partnership, there's also Lloyds Bank, there's PGIM, there's McKinsey, there's Antler. And with that, what we are doing is we are focusing on developing 100 startups, all focused on Web3, all focused on finance. So once you start building this real world use cases and application, that automatically drives adoption, right? So I can educate you, I can teach you, hey, use Cardano, or I can create a product that solves your need and you automatically start using the chain, right? There are many ways to skin a cat and so on. Also the stablecoin example that I gave. So if you have a need to do remittance in any country, and if you can just use one wallet where anything automatically can be sent to any country, can be off-ramped in that currency, it solves your problem. Right? You don't care whether the backend is Cardano or Ethereum or whatever. Another example is we all use internet banking, but we don't care whether it's mainframe computer or vacuum tubes or whatever technology is powering it. That's one of the way to drive adoption is you solve real problems, use cases, applications, and then let people automatically use the technology in the backend.
And let's move on to Cardano adoption. As I mentioned previously, any upcoming announcement about the partnership between EMURGO and Cardano, any initiative that you guys are kickstart, and maybe you can share with our community in Vietnam to see if you guys have any initiative for the Southeast Asia region.
Absolutely. So Vietnam is one location that has very solid Cardano community. In fact, one of our top dexes or decentralized exchange on Cardano is from Vietnam called MinSwap. And when we went to Vietnam 2 months ago for GM Vietnam, we were very warmly welcomed by the community. So these things are very good. So coming back to the point, in terms of partnership, last 3 weeks, 4 weeks have been really busy in a good way. Just yesterday, we announced Cardano or EMURGO partnering with Zilliqa to have interoperability between Cardano and Zilliqa. We also announced today that Kinka, which is a Japanese public company-backed gold-pegged stablecoin, will also be launched on Cardano. We announced our own stablecoin, USDA. We announced partnership with Antler last week where 100 startups will be funded. Not only that, Antler will run residencies where any Cardano project seeking funding or coaching can participate. Antler just announced 2 hours ago today that it will come to Cardano Summit. It will conduct a masterclass for anybody who wants training on how to pitch, what to do, how to apply for residencies. And all this has happened in 3-4 weeks, right? Our aim is that by Cardano Summit, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, but I want to keep the community excited, is by Cardano Summit, we have 20-30 of such partnerships out there just in this quarter. And that goes to show that BD engine that we have built, that's producing results and so on.
And beside these partnerships that you have played, and what are some of the previously successful partnerships that you guys have launched and that really accelerate the adoption of Cardano ecosystem as a whole?
Correct. There have been many recently, or I'll pick up some from past as well, like GSR, Sonarverse, Gate.io, MEXC. Because the thing is, when you go and reach out to institutions, because you built a technology, but technology is as good as it's used for, right? So when you reach out to institutions and enterprises, they will look for exchanges, market makers. Why? Because they want deeper liquidity, they want better plays, right? At that time, you cannot go and say, oh, sorry, by the way, we don't have any partnerships, but we'll start building now. That will be too late or too little too late. So what we have been doing at EMURGO is we're preparing not for now, but for 4 years from now. That's why partnership with market makers like GSR. That's why partnership with exchanges like Gate.io or MEXC and others are coming so that everything is supported by all exchanges, all market makers. These institutions can just come, launch their token, and off they go.
You mentioned, let's move to one of the recent posts that you post after KBW. One of these great insights that you share is the interoperability between, now we're seeing a lot, even as token as well, a lot of layer 1 and layer 2 popping up. And what is your insight onto this in more detail? And maybe we can say, you said, from my understanding, Cardano is also an L1, but how does the multi-chain conversation play into Cardano's, right?
Very good question. This was one of the insights that came to me from Korea Blockchain Week as well. The dynamics of this market or this bull market is very different than previous bull markets. Previous bull market, you didn't have so many layer ones, so many layer twos. As a result, the liquidity was concentrated. In this cycle, you have 40, 50 layer ones, 100 layer twos, all the liquidity is fragmented, and all the chains are fighting for TVL, total value locked and all, right? But I think these are early days. I personally believe that all roads lead to interoperability. What do I mean by that? Is if you have 40 layer ones, I don't see a user having 40 wallets, 40 apps installed just to interact with every chain and so on. There has to be one wallet which is plugged into all chains through APIs, and that one wallet becomes source of truth. I mean, there will be competition, there will be many wallets, but not for chain, not bounded by limitation of a chain, bounded by their features, their ease of use and so on, right? So that's where I believe, not only in terms of developers being able to develop anywhere, but also in terms of liquidity flows. Because if I'm launching a stablecoin or a financial stack today, I don't want to launch it for one chain. I want to build an ecosystem that can go across chains for ease of use, liquidity, development, what have you, right? Just like, think of it like I'm having a bank today, let's say DBS, because we are in Singapore, right? And if I say, okay, I have this bank, customers of this bank can send money to customers within this bank, but cannot send money to customers of other banks. It doesn't make sense. It's not intuitive. So that's what I felt. And I also felt that liquidity is getting very fragmented. The only way to consolidate liquidity is if chains work together. If they don't, liquidity will get thinner and thinner, and everybody will fight for scraps, and that's not good for innovation or disruption.
You just say that it was harder to raise capital. So for
founders,
some...
yes, and because of this reason, for founders, it was much harder to raise capital.
Yeah.
Because which chain are they building on? What's the use case? What's the TVL? So the liquidity overall remains the same, which is 2 trillion, right? Crypto. It doesn't go from 2 trillion to 10 trillion overnight. But because you have now 1 million projects coming every week, it gets fragmented and divided. And then new founders who are building really great stuff, because liquidity is so thin, they're not able to raise money because they cannot show TVL, which is not healthy. So if these all chains are working together, and I could feel and I could observe that the attitude now is not I versus you, it was more of let's work together, we, which is a good change to see. Even it felt like crypto crowd is becoming more sophisticated, because the conversation you were having this time around, it's like everybody understands the concept of liquidity, exit liquidity, macro cycles, bull market, bear market, or Federal Reserve rate cuts. Whereas in previous cycles, it was like 2x, 5x. So the conversation is becoming deeper, which is good, because that means the industry, knowingly or unknowingly, is automatically becoming maturer and so on.
I would say maturer and bigger would it be the right word? Because if you're looking at one of the conversation I'm always interested in is how do we onboard more people onto the Web3 market? Because if we just keep, one of the key things that I learned about our market is the barrier to entry and the amount of knowledge to need to understand to actually know how this market works. And if there is no way to help people understand this market, then no one will entering, and you would just have the same amount of people. So these events just the same amount of faces and the same amount of awareness that we share with each other. But now from what you said, you see more people with more maturity and understanding about the market. Is there maybe much bigger room for expansion in terms of onboarding Web2 people?
100%, totally right. So we are talking about a technology that is poised to become a financial operating system of the world. When we talk about that, we're talking about trillions of dollars, right? And when you see the market cap of entire asset class, not one token, entire asset class, all the tokens, is still around 2 trillion or less than 2 trillion. Whereas market cap of just one commodity in one asset class, which is, let's say, gold inside commodity, itself is 10, 12 trillion. There's a huge, huge runway there, right? It will not happen overnight.
Right.
So in terms of adoption, I think one of the ways is to stop talking about technology and to build use cases, as I said. Why? Because if I want grandma or grandpas to use something, and I keep saying blockchain, blockchain, I'm just shutting them out of system, right? Another nuance of this technology is that it's monetizable instantly. That means when people create tokens, they can sell it. They can raise money from VC. And that's why you see we are focused so much on technology, because these buzzwords, blockchain, AI, DeFi, these are used to raise money from VC. But in terms of real world adoption, nobody cares about this and that, right? So the mindset has to change from raise money to drive adoption or use cases, where we talk less about technology and more about use case and how it's being done.
On the notion of adoption, I think one of the reasons we have seen more people entering this market is now the interaction with AI into the market. So let's go with something basic. What is your thought on AI entering to Web3? And is it all hype, or is there some merit behind it? And we can see really more adoption of Web3 with AI coming into the play.
So one thing I've learned about technology is once the cat is out of the bag, you cannot put the cat back in. That means once the technology is out in the open, it will only grow, it will only get bigger, it will not get. Same with AI. I see tremendous potential and use cases of AI, whether it's with Web3 or without Web3, whether it's with finance or without finance. I'll give you some examples, right? So let's say, what's the biggest or most precious commodity in AI? It's the compute power, right?
Right.
Now, when you have businesses that are developed around using AI, they need more compute power. You might not have as much compute power in-house because that leads to a lot of fixed capital cost, right? So the only way they can get a lot of compute power is they have to go to markets and purchase compute power, whether it's through cloud compute or some other compute and so on, right? Now, when that starts happening, this becomes a commodity. And it will be traded in free markets just like any other commodity, like oil. So if I'm a company that uses a lot of oil, I hedge my 2 years, 5 years risk by buying options or futures contract. The same kind of markets will be created around AI, where people can buy those contracts to hedge their cost. Otherwise, the cost will be volatile. Equally, AI can be used for both good and bad, right? Now, the only way to authenticate an AI is where you can have a private signature. So when you combine AI with Web3, for example, elections are happening in US, right?
Right.
There will be a lot of deep fakes or a lot of interviews that will come out from Trump and Harris both, where they will say, we never said this, AI generated it, right? So how do you authenticate that? Imagine if you have your own private key, which only you can use to sign. That's one of the other use cases where it's published with that private key signature to say that this is a real one, rest all are fake. On and on and on. So there will be many, many of these intersections of technology. I don't think it's good or bad for Web3. I just believe that it'll start working together to form something that we are not even thinking right now. And those markets will come to fruition. Yeah.
I'll say one of the things that really drew people into seeing how Web3 could, I would say, authenticate AI is because a lot of, like you said, deepfake. People that are, let's say, my parent generation, looking at a video made with Trump saying some outlandish thing, and they was like, oh, he said, and believing it because it seems so real. And now people actually looking into how would we making sure that these information are true through the utilization of blockchain. So what is, from that leading on to that conversation, how much control are we over AI, and how would blockchain help us gaining that control in regard to misinformation, or what are people believing about AI?
AI is a very polarizing subject, thanks to Hollywood as well. Movies like Terminator and everything else. So there is a camp that believes once AI comes, we all will die. There's a camp that believes there's only two futures for humanity. Either humanity goes extinct or it merges with AI, which is what Elon Musk, Neuralink, and everything else is working on. And then there is a camp which believes that AI is good, humans don't have to work, we can have universal basic income, we can all be artists or whatever we want to be. all the camps have their own pros and cons. To answer your question, in terms of AI is good or bad, how much we can control it, it's very hard to control a technology which is smarter than you. And a scientist once said, I cannot recall his name, but he once said, if we as humans, we truly create AI which is really smart, that might be our last invention. Because after that, all inventions will be done by that AI and so on, right? So you cannot control it. You have to find ways to integrate into societies, or you have to make sure you put fail-safe mechanisms or circuit breaker mechanisms where if things go out of control, circuit breaks. That's that, right? And there are two types of AI, as you know, right? ANI, AGI. So artificial narrow intelligence, which is linear regression, data regression, that's fine. AGI, where you're training AI to become intuitive or human-like, that's very tough because it's like a human farm that you are creating, which maybe 100 years from now will create its own farm, which creates its own farm. So it becomes like a recursive worlds that you're not aware of. You all think that you're in one world, but in that world you create something else, something else. I'm sorry, I'm going a bit more Black Mirror-ish style, but when it comes to AI topic, there are so many thought processes. We are so early. In terms of monetizing, I think players in Web3 have a great opportunity. Why? Because adopters of Web3 are the people who believe in something which is not there yet. And that's why they adopted this technology before everyone else did. And that's why probably they can see what AI can do more than other people or institutions can see, right? And that's where opportunities of having decentralized compute, decentralized AI, and all the more there's a need for decentralized AI because no one entity can control because that's too much power. So once you decentralize it, put it on blockchain and let it run its separate neural networks for separate things, that's how you divide it. I'll give you an example of tau, bit tensor, right? So that's like a compute power for AI, but it creates subnets and every subnet has a specialization. So one has specialization of going through Reddit forums and scrapping data. One has specialization of, let's say, creating trading models, right? So that way, that AI does a lot of stuff, but it's separated from other AIs who are doing stuff. So it cannot empower everything, but at the same time, you're harnessing AI to do a lot of specific tasks because they're separated by different subnets or they're decentralized in that manner.
Last question about AI, since we are going too deep into it, but like last question, AI is the trend right now. And what is the next step for you guys at EMURGO? And maybe for Cardano ecosystem as a whole, how would AI play into what you guys are doing in supporting with Cardano adoption, and how would it sitting with Cardano interoperability?
Very cool. So I'll answer for Cardano first and then for EMURGO.
Right.
For Cardano, we have a project called Igon, which is working on decentralized compute, which I just gave an example of. It actually, this is too early, but it's actually partnering with the big enterprise whose name everybody has heard to basically sell them compute for AI and all that. So it's actually happening in real world as we talk, right? I don't want to say the name because I don't want to steal their thunder, so I'll let them do that. So that's what's happening in Cardano. A lot of projects are coming up with this stuff and so on. At EMURGO, and so now that we already announced we are working with the Antler, we are focusing on financial industry. It's very hard to predict the future, but one or two examples which I just gave, that there will be financial markets that will be created around AI, where it's high frequency trading bots, or whether it's compute or trading of compute powers, or whether it's AI helping solve different subnet problem where you divide or make it decentralized. We don't know, but the aim of this 100 startups that will work in financial sector is to use these groundbreaking technologies that will plug into ecosystem and so on, right? That's where EMURGO is focusing on as well.
Right. Just last question, since we are at TOKEN2049. What are some of the key highlights on some of the topics that you're looking forward to hear? And maybe you can share with us so that we can check it out. And maybe some of the notes you have for side event. You said, one of the things I love about your post is you said, plan your side event carefully because some of the topic or some of the connection you are interested might be there. So can you share some words insight on that?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked, right? Because a lot of time in these events, side event is seen as a party, which it is. It's good to loosen up and so on. But I firmly believe the value of showing up, because you're so tired at the end of it all. So like yesterday, I went to 5 or 6 side events. And sometimes just showing up, you're forced to talk to people around you.
Right.
Sometimes it brings amazing connection that you cannot plan, because there's only so much you can plan in life. Rest of it cannot be planned, right? So that's one. The theme at Token2049 that I'm seeing, again, we still have a day to go, so this is not my final verdict. The theme I'm seeing, there's a lot more RWA and a lot more tokenization, a lot of it, right? I'm also observing a little bit of deep in AI, but again, tomorrow my focus will be on AI deep in. Today it was RWA tokenization. That's why I'm thinking that way. In terms of side event, my advice to all will be to attend them. They are free. There are hundreds of them. And if you don't like one, nothing is stopping you to go to another and another. Register for half a dozen or dozen for the night. That's it. It's the easiest thing there can be. It's all about willpower. It's all about showing up. And that's that.
And any final remarks? So since our biggest community is in Vietnam, any final remark for the Vietnamese community? What are you guys expecting coming out from Vietnam? Maybe on both on developer side or non-dev side?
So not a lot of people know this, but one of the biggest developer community that Cardano has is in Vietnam, including some back-end developer teams that big organizations use. So I personally have a soft corner for Vietnam because of a lot of reasons, because I feel it has tremendous potential, which now finally the world is starting to see, especially the technology side, because technology doesn't have a limitation or barrier in terms of import, export, government rules, and what have you. Anybody with a computer can do the same thing that anybody.
No geographical limitation.
No geographical limitation, right? So with that, the younger generation have started tapping into it.
Right.
So my message to Vietnam community will be, if you have an idea, if you want to work with us, all the things that I've mentioned, tokenization, stablecoin, real world asset, financial stack, reach out to us. Or if you need help, if you want to, let's say, get in touch with Antler, if you want to raise funding through Antler, if you want coaching, or if you want to be connected to any of our portfolio companies, or if you want to be on Cardano or connected to other Cardano projects, we are happy to help you. We are happy to support you. Our headquarters is in Singapore. It's a stone throw away from Vietnam. If needed, we are happy to fly there, sit with you, and work together as well.
Right. Thank you so much, Amar, for this insightful talk. And I hope our community enjoyed that. And I'll see you guys in this next episode.